Today, we're going to talk about why Microsoft Intune matters for AI readiness. Here at Advisicon, we help organizations achieve greater impact by leveraging work management technologies to accomplish more with less. As work management consultants and technology specialists, our focus is on streamlining processes, improving systems, and achieving better outcomes. In today's webinar, we're going to go over the following topics. I'll walk you through an intro of Intune and device management, AI adoption with better device governance, secure streamlined IT with mobile device management, how to identify weaknesses in your environment, and then a summary of best practices and next steps. Let's get started with an intro to Microsoft Intune and device management. Intune has 8 steps to get started. First, you need to secure licensing for Microsoft Intune. This could either be standalone licenses or Microsoft 365 based packages. Intune Plan 1 is what you need to get started, which is included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium and Microsoft 365 Enterprise SKUs. Everything I show today can be done with an Intune Plan 1 license. Our next step is Windows Autopilot. This involves Intune enrollment and onboarding. Application control is the next step. You can restrict and manage your applications. Along with that is app protection. You can decide how BYOD devices connect to your data, either company or personal. Compliance policies is our next step. Monitor and govern your devices in tandem with conditional access so you can restrict or allow certain devices to access your data. This is very important in Copilot to keep your data secure. Device configuration is controlling how your devices interact with your data and your tenant. You can restrict certain apps, restrict certain settings, enforce different apps and different settings. Defender for endpoint is keeping your devices secure and safe. If there's a threat, Defender will detect it. And Intune devices can be automatically onboarded to Windows Defender. And number 8 is our bonus. Apple is included. Majority of these settings and applications can be transferred over to Mac OS and used and restricted just like Windows. You then may be wondering, what is the difference between Intune managed devices and non-Intune managed devices? With an Intune managed device, you have complete control over the device to manage applications, settings, policies, and the ability to use Windows Autopilot. You could also do remote Windows installs, resets, and wiping company data from that device, completely and utterly destroying any trace of company property and IP. You also have complete monitoring and control of the data on the device. As we stated before, you can reset, but you can also control what data is allowed on that device and what data is not. Not managed devices. So these devices are usually personal devices connecting to your environment or devices that are company owned but not in Intune. You have limited control of the applications and policies. Only protection is through BYOD app protection policies that you can set up per app. Admins can wipe data, so you can still wipe your company data, but you will not be able to wipe that device completely. And then you have a lack of full Defender onboarding and protection. Non-Intune managed devices can still be included in your Defender policies, but you get limited control and access. An Intune device gets full Defender onboarding and protection. Our next part is AI adoption with better device governance. This particularly involves device compliance and conditional access. Compliance matters because it allows IT teams to quickly assess whether the device meets the standards set by the organization. Conditional access can be incorporated into these compliance policies to restrict unsecure and devices that don't meet your policies from accessing your data in Microsoft Copilot. You could also discover device vulnerabilities using compliance policies. Say your devices are running Windows 10 and you need them all to run Windows 11. You can set a compliance policy to look for those devices and either block them or set a flag to let admins know. Copilot should be restricted on these devices if they do not meet your company policies. Secure devices are important for protecting your data on your environment. In this quick demo of Microsoft Intune compliance policies, I'm going to show you how to set up a compliance policy that blocks devices that do not have BitLocker installed from accessing your company. So in the Microsoft Intune portal, go to your devices, compliance, create a policy. If you're doing Windows devices, which BitLocker is a Windows application, do Windows 10 or later. This will cover Windows 10 and Windows 11. Under profile type, select Windows 10, 11 compliance policy, and then create. Give it a name, give it a description. Next. You have several options here. You can restrict from OS version, device health, which has different policies and settings you can do. For this example, we're going to do BitLocker. So require. You can mark your device as non-compliant immediately, or you can schedule the days, so 30 days grace period, and so on. Click next. Scope tags to better identify it. So this is the device setting. Usually remove the default and then press next. Next. This is where you add your groups. For this example, I'm not going to add a group because I'm not making this policy for real. But you'd go to add groups and then you can find the group you want to add with your devices in it. Press next, review and create, and then Intune will create the policy. Once your devices add and sync with Intune, they'll show up here. And if they're compliant with BitLocker, you'll get the devices count up here. If they're non-compliant, it will show up here. If they error out, you'll get another error page usually. But that's how you can quickly check whether your devices are compliant with Microsoft BitLocker. You can view the report of the devices that check in. It shows you the logged in user, what policy they're in compliance with, device ID, OS version, and the last contact date. How would you then take that compliance policy you just created for BitLocker and restrict your devices that aren't compliant? In Microsoft Entra, if you're licensed, you need an Azure P1 license for this feature. You can go here to conditional access on the sidebar here in the Microsoft Entra Center. Go to your policies, create a new policy, give it a name. I'll just give it the same name, Windows 10 check, and then BitLocker. For your users that are included, you do select groups, and then you do that same group that you added to the BitLocker policy. I did not add a group, but let's use an example here. So I have this demo compliance group that has several devices in it. You target it towards that group. Go to target resources. Do resources, which is formerly Cloud Apps. That's everything that uses a Microsoft 365 account. You can also exclude different resources here, but for this example, we'll just do all. On network, you can include locations. For this example, we're not going to do that. And then your conditions. This is more for user risk, sign-in risk, but you also can filter devices here. So let's say you want to do it device platforms, which this is a Windows device. So you click Windows. Do grant access or block access. For this example, we do block access. And then you would require the device to be marked as compliant. And it's only going to target this group that you put in here. If you were to do all devices, it would do every device that's marked compliant. Not marked compliant, this is not a recommended practice because then you wouldn't have control over which devices have access or not. Your session, this is more for sign-ins, so we don't need to touch that. The three things you need to touch are the name, the group that's targeted, the condition, and then the grant controls. You can turn this on, which will immediately start syncing the policy over your devices, or you can do it as a report, which means it will show up in the sign-in logs as whether the device is going to be blocked or not. And then you create your policy. I'm not going to create this here because this is just the demo, but that is how you integrate your compliance policy with conditional access. Our next section is Secure Streamlined IT with Mobile Device Management, or MDM. Application deployments are crucial for Microsoft Intune to control what apps are installed on your devices. You can set these up in two ways. You can do required apps, which require the app to be installed when the device enrolls or is added to your organization. So during the out-of-box experience, if you have Windows Autopilot configured, it will install these apps before the user ever sees the desktop. So they're available for use and sign in upon the first boot of the computer. The next section, available for enrolled devices, are apps that are available to the user and installed through the company portal. As you can see from this screenshot, the company portal allows you to see all your managed apps, and users can choose whether to install them or uninstall them depending on your settings. Application packages are highly customizable and adaptable. If your application requires special requirements, Intune can accommodate these needs. Along with that, you can manage Windows updates to make sure your devices are up to date and running the latest version of Windows or Microsoft Office. These updates are granular. You can manage the update channels, whether you get insider updates, beta updates, or current channel updates. It is recommended to always stay on current channel for production devices. These device updates can be automated. The user will no longer need to manually check for updates or restart their device. You can have Intune do that. A note about Copilot and Windows Update or Office updates. Copilot likes to use the latest features of Microsoft Office, so it is recommended that you are always up to date in your Microsoft 365 deployments, in particular around Copilot, so it gets the latest features pushed out by Microsoft. You could also install feature updates or Microsoft Windows using these deployment policies. Every quarter, Microsoft releases a feature update for Windows, and you can automatically install these to all your devices to make sure they're up to date. And then say down the future, Windows 11 is replaced with Windows 12 or another operating system, you can install these automatically using these features. This works for both Windows and Mac OS, depending on the configuration. Intune better enables your environment for AI by doing the following things. Restriction leads to better Copilot adoption. For example, with browsers, you can install extensions that enable AI tools within the browser within Chrome and Microsoft Edge. It is recommended you restrict these because your IT team will not know what people are putting into them data-wise. These extensions often circumvent your application and compliance restrictions. Microsoft Teams is the same way. It allows users to install third-party apps by default. It is recommended you turn this off and only allow the apps that you trust and allow within your organization. If the setting is turned off to enable third-party apps and a user wants to add an app, they have to request it from their IT team. Entra ID has a similar setting that restricts the registration of enterprise apps. It is recommended by default that you turn this off and only allow users to request apps. If all these settings are left on, they can circumvent your compliance policies and application restrictions. So it is recommended that these are turned off for better security and enablement of Copilot. In this demo, I'm going to show you how to restrict Microsoft Entra apps and Microsoft Teams apps for user install within your organization. So if you navigate to the Microsoft Entra Admin Center, on the left-hand side here, you'll see Enterprise Apps. And here you can see all the apps that a user has installed. To restrict this and allow admin consent, go up here to Users, user settings. And then this first option here under default user role permissions, unselect the option to allow users to register applications. Select no. What this will do is if you go into Microsoft Entra's Enterprise Apps section, you go to Admin Consent Request. Every time a user wants to sign into an application that's not already registered, a request will be sent to your admins, either cloud admins, application admins, or your global administrators to approve that app. And then an email will be sent to a user. To do the same thing in Microsoft Teams, navigate to the Teams Admin Center. On the left-hand side here, go to Teams Apps, Manage Apps. And as you can see, Microsoft has about 1,400 apps available to Teams. You can block them individually. So if you go to an application, go to permissions, you can look at what the app's about. If it's available, you can block the app up here. If you want to block them tenant-wide, you go to Manage Apps, Actions, org-wide app settings. Uncheck this box that says third-party apps, and then save it. This setting takes several hours to apply, but once it's applied and a user installs an app within Microsoft Teams, it will not let them install it without admin consent, the same way as Entra. It is recommended you do these settings to block a lot of these AI-enabled apps if you want your users just using Copilot in Microsoft Teams. A common challenge in IT administration is how to identify weaknesses in your environment. Microsoft Intune makes that easier. A common challenge is shadow IT. These are applications installed by users that admins have no awareness of. Microsoft has technology and tools to discover these apps using Microsoft Defender and Microsoft Intune. AI must be governed and users must be restricted and educated. Uninformed users will install tools and apps without permissions. AI data leakage is a result of poor management and device compliance. To discover shadow IT, you need to configure Defender for endpoint. Defender can identify apps on devices, and then you can use this data to block and remove apps. You should restrict admin access to all your devices and only allow standard user permissions. If a user needs something installed, it's either installed through Microsoft Intune or an admin's direct input. Require admin consent for apps, as we talked about before, in Microsoft Entra, Teams, and then the browser extensions. You should also utilize Microsoft Purview. You label your data and set up alerts for Copilot interactions. These are the common ways to circumvent and stop shadow IT from running rampant in your organization and keeping your data secure. Securing your mobile access for your BOD devices is crucial to making sure your data is protected and secured on personal devices that your company allows users to use. In today's environment of hybrid and remote work, this is incredibly crucial to make sure your data is secure. Intune can help you secure this data by doing the following. You can restrict devices that do not meet requirements for your company. So say someone's using an older iPhone with an older iOS version, you can restrict those devices from even touching your company data. Data management is crucial. You can restrict saving company documents outside of sanctioned services like Dropbox instead of OneDrive, or if you want to restrict copy and paste from Outlook to another app. So like if you're going from Outlook to ChatGPT, you can restrict that data from being copied in. It prevents unauthorized access use of company data on personal devices, but it's also flexible on devices used but maintains compliance for your data. So say someone wants to use an iPhone or an Android, you can have policies for both. If a device does not meet your compliance policies or is lost or stolen, you can remote wipe it using app protection policies and Microsoft Intune. And you can set up Outlook policies that require certain security be met. So your device should have a passcode or it should have an up-to-date version of the app. If you set these Outlook policies, your Outlook apps on your personal devices will check for compliance every time they start. Our last part here, let's go over a quick summary of what we just discussed. Our best practices for Microsoft Intune is device management is key to effective AI governance. It allows organizations to control access and compliance on your devices. You want to restrict your application usage. If the app is unapproved, restrict it. If Copilot is the goal, set policies to disallow other AI apps. Those are through the browser, Microsoft Teams, or Microsoft Entra enterprise apps. Monitor your environment. Stay diligent in your monitoring practices. This will allow you to tune your policies and detect holes, and then educate your end users if repeated patterns occur. You want to make sure your users are educated on how to secure their own data, and IT works in conjunction with this to make sure that users are using your data properly and with the compliance of your policies. Thanks for watching today's webinar. If you have any questions, please reach us via email or phone number, or you can go to our Learning Academy at advisicon.thinkific.com for more resources or look at our YouTube channel.